But first, another week and another series of bullying allegations. And much to the relief of Labor's state-funded cheer squad, the focus was promptly back on the coalition.
Many in this place would be aware of the history I've had with Scott Morrison. He is adept at running with the foxes and hunting with the hounds, lacking the moral compass and having no conscience. There is a very appropriate saying here: the fish stinks from the head. It is his way or the highway, an autocrat, a bully who has no moral compass.
That was Liberal Senator Concetta Fierravanti-Wells, who has been bumped down to the 4th spot on the New South Wales Senate ticket, effectively meaning she'll lose her job at the election. So what do you make of that? Are these the words of a scorned senator lashing out at an institution no longer willing to pay her salary? Or is it a desperate warning to the Australian people that their leader is a bully, lacking in morality? The truth is probably a mixture of the two, and no matter how anyone tries to spin it, Concetta's words are of immense news value, just like Kimberley Kitching's were, which is why at Sky we've been properly covering this issue.
Outgoing Liberal Senator Concetta Fierravanti-Wells has delivered a scathing assessment of Scott Morrison, declaring he's not fit to be Prime Minister.
But there is something very strange happening in the Australian media, where some journalists are unable to look at stories like this and state what all of you watching at home know. These are all stories we should be able to discuss. Except on the ABC, it seems. We scoured through every episode of The Drum since the Kimberley Kitching story broke, and it is almost as if it never happened. On March 21, the day of Kimberley's funeral, The Drum host Julia Baird didn't even have a segment on it. That morning, Kimberley Kitching's husband said this:
Kimberley's political and moral judgment was vastly superior to the small number who opposed her internally. And of course, there's a lot I could say about the unpleasantness of a cantankerous cabal, not all of them in Parliament, that was aimed at Kimber. And the intensity of it did baffle and hurt her.
That's not newsworthy to Julia Baird? Guess not. And do you know what she used her taxpayer-funded platform to promote instead?
But a series of recent studies shows that something as simple as a brisk walk could have big benefits for your brain and body. The research from the University of Leicester has found that those who power walk are biologically 15 years younger than their more sedentary counterparts. And while US researchers say about 8,000 steps a day is enough to reap the rewards, back home, the University of Sydney's physical activity professor, Emmanuel Stamatakis, says the ideal target may actually vary depending on your age.
Look at me! I can walk!
Breaking news: walking keeps you fit. That report went on for some time. And in the same episode, instead of addressing the biggest news story of the day, the Kitching allegations, the ABC was too busy telling you how racist Australians were.
In its report, the Diversity Council of Australia has said it's time for Australian companies to confront their ingrained preference for white Anglo-Saxon employees over those from other backgrounds. The report found that 43% of racially marginalised non-white workers said that racism in their workplace was very common.
For an organisation always preaching diversity, its content is painfully predictable. So much so that when the same sort of bullying allegations are lobbed at a coalition Prime Minister, this is how Julia Baird and the Drum responded.
Within all the fiscal excitement of last night, one Liberal senator managed to quite dramatically steal the spotlight. Fierravanti-Wells used parliamentary privilege to describe Scott Morrison as a backstabber.
And Baird springs to life. Imagine the glee inside the ABC newsroom when this story broke. But she doesn't stop there.
There's a refrain that we've heard kind of repeatedly on the question of bullying. We've heard it from Julia Banks. We heard it from Gladys Berejiklian by leaked text message. We've had it now from Senator Fierravanti-Wells. We had Pauline Hanson saying the same thing today. Is this looking like a pattern?
And when the president of the New South Wales Young Liberals described the bullying comments as distracting, Julia Baird suddenly decided to become a tough journalist.
I think it's just distracting right now because there's much bigger issues at home at play.
And if bullying were to be a significant issue, when would be the right time to talk about it?
Perhaps Julia should ask herself the very same question. Well, helping me break down the big stories of the week, I'm joined by media writer at The Australian, Sophie Ellsworth, and author and columnist, Kel Richards. Kel, let's start with you. What did you make of the way that the ABC has now suddenly leapt into the reporting of bullying allegations? It's now suddenly the only story that they want to know about.
Actually, it's not. If you listen carefully to what Julia Baird said, she edited her list. This is the latest in a long series of bullying allegations, and she went through this name and that name and that. Oh, Kimberley Kitching's name wasn't mentioned. Wasn't that strange? That suddenly you can talk about anyone who alleges bullying in the Liberal Party or someone from One Nation who alleges bullying, but when it comes to Kimberley Kitching from the Labor Party, that is banned. She doesn't mention it. I mean, it looks like a political agenda because it is a political agenda. I remember interviewing Connie Fierravanti-Wells when the Liberal Party was still in opposition and she was the Shadow Minister for Ageing. She was brilliant. She was on top of her portfolio. She was good and then didn't get that particular ministry. So she's had a lot of disappointments and I can understand her anger. But her anger is being exploited by people who aren't thinking, oh, well, she had a bad run and now she's unhappy at the end, so she's having spitting the dummy or whatever. They're not saying that. They're trying to imply that you all know about the Kimberley Kitching stuff, and we're not talking about it, but you know about it. OK, so here is something which is even worse. There is absolutely no parallel between losing your position on the Senate ticket and being told by your leader in the Senate that you don't understand the policy because you don't have any children. That is cruel, that is savage, that is bullying, and Penny Wong didn't apologise for it until it was publicly exposed. Now, that's one thing. That's what's being ignored, while losing your position on the Senate ticket is not being ignored.
And such a great point, Sophie. The parallels between the two issues, obviously, are plain to see for everybody. But the specifics from the Kimberley Kitching allegations, they actually make them to a different level. That comment that Penny Wong has admitted happened and apologised for, using her inability to have children, using that to win a party room dispute over climate change, that's absolutely horrendous.
It is, Jack, but I think what we're seeing in the media is there's a protection racket at work here. The ABC do not like to air allegations that are against the Labor Party. They are a cheer squad for the left, and they will continue to be so right up until the election. I'll give you one example this morning, Jack. So I was listening to Patricia Karvelis on RM Breakfast. She interviewed Katy Gallagher and also Peter Dutton. She asked Peter Dutton about the bullying allegations that were aired this week in Parliament. No reference at all through the interview to Katy Gallagher about Mean Girls or Kimberley Kitching at all. This is not good enough. They are playing teams here and they will be celebrating if Labor win at the upcoming federal election.
It's political reporting which has become political campaigning. And the reason I made the point in the editorial, Kel, about how we're covering both sides of it is because that's become a rare thing now.
Yes. It has. And too much of the media has decided to use Sophie's expression, it's a team game and we've got to decide which team we're on. We are playing for this side, not for the other side. Now, that's a huge disappointment. I've mentioned before when I joined the ABC, which was a very long time ago, I had quite dark hair in those days, a long time ago. I was actually told at the induction that we do not editorialise here at the ABC. Now, that's what happened years ago. That's been thrown overboard. And now you work out what team you're on, and if you're not on the team the rest of the ABC is on, then I'm sorry, you won't fit in here. There won't be, your face doesn't fit. There won't be a place for you. So there's not a Conservative commentator, executive producer or presenter anywhere in ABC media, as Gerard Henderson keeps pointing out repeatedly, and they never challenge him because they know it's true.
Yeah, look, it's such a good point, but what will happen is they are damaging their own reputations. No matter what happens at the polls, people will remember them self-censoring.